We're going to open up with Jim Barker, CFL on TSN. A quick thought, Barks, if you don't mind, his weekly appearance for EMJ Marketing. Was the Lions upsetting Kansas City 21-20? How big of a shock, or maybe not a shock for you, was that result?
Actually, when, the Lions have been one of those anomalies, kind of, we have teams up here like that they get all this hype. For them to go into Kansas City and play the way they did, I mean, they were physical. They basically physically took it to Kansas City. I didn't think Kansas City defensively held up well. You just mentioned in your last thing, I think Chris Jones, there's nothing worse than management than have to go and say, you know what, we need to get this done because they know they're not going anywhere without him. And I think it was obvious that they just weren't as physical. So kudos to the Detroit Lions, to Dan Campbell, the things they're doing there. And I just, the 1-2 punch of Montgomery and Gibbs it's real. And, Jared Goff, I don't think the Rams believed that he could be the guy who could win Super Bowls for them. In this kind of a system with what they're doing where, he's not in a whole lot of gun. He's not in a whole ton of drop back. He occasional drop back, and he actually looks better in it than he ever has. So I think this is a good football team that's well coached and doing the right things. They're on the right track.
If any franchise and fan base deserves it, it's them. So if you saw the last segment, you heard us talking about Hamilton, Ottawa tonight. This one is a tough one for me. REDBLACKS stumbling coming in, but they are coming off a bye. They've lost 5 in a row. Hamilton playing on 3 days rest, but this Taylor Powell's learning every week and getting better. What's your assessment of tonight's game at TD Place?
Well, like you, I always like to take the better team, and Hamilton's beat them twice. But I was involved in that Calgary-Edmonton turnaround, that 3 days in between games. And, the one year, 2003, where we actually won on Labor Day, by Friday, you figure that the players go out and celebrate, and then you come back, your next day's really not much, and then you have 1 day to... When you're playing the same team, it's actually workable. I've never seen the 3-day turnaround with a team playing a team coming off of a bye. I think that's just too much. I'm not a gambling man, but if I was, this is Ottawa's opportunity. This is a must-win for Ottawa. If Ottawa doesn't win this game, they're going to be done. I mean, they play no more teams under 500 the rest of the way. They'll have 6 games after tonight. If they don't win tonight, they are done. And if having 2 weeks to prepare, they've been watching film of Hamilton for 2 weeks, and now they're playing a team that really had no practice. They had 1 day, and it was so hot out, they probably didn't get a whole lot done. If Ottawa can't beat Hamilton in this situation, they're worse than we thought they were. So I would pick Ottawa tonight. I just think that this is a game that, again, I've been in the league for almost 30 years. I've never seen the 3-day turnaround not playing the same team. That's a tough one. And playing a team also coming off of a bye. So if Ottawa can't do this one, I don't know that they can win again.
Great assessment, and so rest is a big factor despite the losing streak that they currently carry. Hey, to the triple header on Saturday, man. You got some Pedialites? You got whatever it takes to get you going all day? How long are you going to be on television Saturday?
The whole day. We get in around 10:30 or 11, and we will be there until until that final game ends. And it's Calgary and Edmonton, but they're exciting games, and that makes it intriguing. So we start with Toronto, Montreal, and one of the things that's going to happen is that either Montreal is going to say, you know what, we really are a legitimate top end team, and they're going to go into Toronto and win, or Toronto's going to say, you know what, we're going to clinch this playoff spot. We're going to put ourselves so far ahead that it's going to take the pressure off of us a little bit coming down the stretch. again, it's just a great matchup for right now. Then you get the rematch of the best game of the Labor Day weekend, the Saskatchewan Winnipeg game. That was, I mean, how could you script that out? It was absolutely classic CFL football in every sense. I have a feeling that this game is going to be extremely physical. Again, the Pete Robertson situation, that was unfortunate. Rod, when you and I used to play, when you made a great play, get up and you'd high five anybody, and nowadays they headbutt guys. I honestly believe if that was Micah Johnson, it would have been Micah Johnson that he headbutted. And the first person he saw was Zach. Instead of giving him a high five like we used to do, he gave him a headbutt. And I don't think it was an intentional, oh, there's Zach Caleros, I'm going to go give him a headbutt because I can knock him. I don't think it was anything like that. I think it was an emotion of, we just stopped them on the biggest play of the game. I'm pumped up. And like I say, he just looked around and it looked like the first person he saw was Zach. And it was unfortunate. And he deserves to be suspended. I'm not by any means saying he did. He deserves to be suspended. They have to control that. But I just think the emotions of this game, while I thought the game on Sunday was very physical, I think it's going to go up a notch. I think for Saskatchewan to win, they need to do the same kinds of things that they did against Winnipeg. I thought they ran the ball. They used Morrow out of the backfield. It was just it was a thing of beauty, and that's one of Winnipeg's issues is getting guys covered coming out of the backfield, and I thought they did a great job there. So that's going to be just such a fun game to watch. Snot bubbles all over IG Field. They're going to be hitting like nobody's business. And then, in the nightcap, we get the Calgary-Edmonton game. And Calgary comes from way behind to beat Edmonton. Again, that stop their winning streak. But Trey Ford, again, played pretty well. He couldn't throw the ball when they had to throw it, which was a little disappointing. But I just think this is going to be a really interesting game from so many different angles. Who's good? This one to me is the toughest one to pick. I honestly, if I was a betting man, I think I would bet with Edmonton because I do think that in Trey Ford they have somebody that can hurt you so many different ways. Now, whether he's ever going to become the passer that he needs to be, that when they're behind and they need to throw, can he be that guy? I don't know. He reminds me, people were talking about Flutie, and Chris Jones mentioned Flutie, and Flutie was a passer who ran the ball. And maybe Trey will become that. He reminds me of Tracy Ham, and I had Tracy in Montreal toward the end of his career when he became a much better passer. He became much better at getting the ball out of his hands, his accuracy and things. And that's what he reminds me of, because Tracy had unbelievable spot quickness. Like you couldn't tackle him in a phone booth. He was a jitterbug. And that to me is what I see Trey Ford more as Tracy Ham maybe than Doug Flutie at this point. Now maybe he'll evolve into Doug, and I had Doug in his last year in the CFL. So obviously he was a finished product by that point. But I always saw him as a passer that could hurt you with the run. And kind of like what Mahomes does with Kansas City. He's a passer who can hurt you with the run. Where I see Trey Ford as a runner who could hurt you with the arm. But that's the way I see it right now. I know Trey doesn't want that, but that's kind of where he is right now. And, again, I watching him evolve is going to be fun these last few weeks. But this is an interesting game because if Calgary can win, it's going to put them in the hunt potentially for the crossover, especially if Ottawa beats Hamilton. So much excitement. How can you not stay awake on Saturday?
I know. Well, I'll be awake for it all. I love Chris Jones, as many people know, but Trey Ford compared to Doug Flutie, just stop. Trey Ford looks really good at his best. When he's at his best, he looks real good. He's got a long ways to go. Now, you talk about the excitement. You're right, Jim. I was reading the game notes here just this morning. Winnipeg and Sask. Sask has never beaten Winnipeg ever in overtime. Never happened. till last week. I mean, that's what's great about this game and just sports. You never know what's going to happen when you go to the ballpark, right? Which, by the way, Bombers are favored by 8.5 in the Banjo Bowl. Do you think that the tables turn here when they're at home? Like, what are the factors for Winnipeg in this game to win it?
Well, to me, the biggest thing is I think their focus on offense is going to be at a different level. I don't think they just didn't seem totally, I don't know, there was just something wrong with them offensively. They weren't their normal crisp, even the running game with Oliveira, it's just a credit to the defensive front. And I think we sometimes don't give Saskatchewan's defensive front the credit it deserves, because I felt in the run game, they basically kept Oliveira to 3-4 yard gains. He had a couple of long ones that he broke out of, but for the most part, I thought they did a great job on him. That's, I believe, I think they're going to do a much better job running the ball, Winnipeg will, which will then open up their passing game a little bit more. I do like the Winnipeg receivers against the Saskatchewan defensive backs. But again, they got to be able to run the ball to make that stuff work for Zach. So again, I just didn't think their offense looked real sharp. I thought their defense was okay. But when Saskatchewan needed, and I'm going to give Jake Dolegala, I'm going to give Kelly Jeffries a ton of credit. You know how I always talk about quarterbacks and finding the right offensive coordinator? This is a case of like the offensive coordinator finding the right quarterback for the stuff he's comfortable doing. I think he's more comfortable with Jake Dolegala than he was with Mason Fine. I think he's a little bit more like Trevor. But I just thought his plan with Dolegala was fantastic. Dolegala looked like a true, legitimate 6'7" drop back quarterback who can throw the dig routes and throw those tough routes that shorter guys sometimes struggle with. So again, I give a lot of credit to Kelly for, again, it may be a situation of an offensive coordinator finally finding the perfect quarterback for his system. It's kind of an interesting thought.
Yeah, well, you knew Kelly Jeffrey from before. The Rider fans were all over him. Who's this guy? And I'm like, just give him a chance. You knew him. Didn't you say you guys had him on the Argos staff back in the day?
Yeah, he coached special teams for us, but I knew him back when he was at UNLV just starting out. Our paths crossed long before he came to work for us with the Argos. So, he's a good football coach. Again, his systems are more Bill Walsh-like than they are anything else. And like I say, watching that game, it was about middle of the second quarter. I said, man, this is like Kelly has found his guy that can do the stuff he wants. He had thrown a layered dig route, and he drilled it right in. And I thought, now that's the stuff that he wants to do. That's the stuff that they used to do when he was at UNLV. That's the old West Coast offense type of stuff. And I thought, man, it's really rarer. Usually it's the quarterback needs the offensive coordinator that can adapt to him. Here's an offensive coordinator that's maybe found a quarterback that really fits the stuff he loves doing.
And a great job by them to win games without their top two guys. Let's not forget about that, right? That hasn't been easy on them. So, Jim, always love it. The viewers love it. Hope you get a good nap, get a good sleep tonight. And we'll be watching all day tomorrow down here on CBS Sports
My favorite
Network.
10 minutes of the week. 10 minutes on
ours too.
Friday with Rod Pedersen.
Ours too.
I look forward to it.
Us too. Thanks, Barks.
man.
Have a great weekend.